We're not going to be using this yet, guys, but I did want to point out some things we're going to have to do prior to using this. The wheels are the only thing that are supporting this weight of the machine, which is fine right now. But when we go to use this, we're going to be using the jolt table, which is going to be jarring this thing pretty good. Don't underestimate the size of this thing. This thing is heavy. You got all that weight already sitting on 3 points at each wheel. When you go to add air to it and operate the jolt table, it's going to be pounding, along with the weight of the mold itself, it's going to be pounding more weight straight down on those 3 points. When we get it located where it will be all the time, I'm going to crib it up from the bottom with timber in several different locations. Now originally this thing had stands that telescoped through the casting here all the way to the floor. It had 3 points, 1, 2, and then you come around here to the front and you got 1 over here on the left side. Why they had it on this side and not this side, I don't know. There's no evidence to show that there was a support boss here on this side. But it won't matter anyway, because I'm going to put my timbers straight up under this axle, and that will evenly distribute the weight along the surface of the concrete, not just on 3 little points here. I also have to get 2 new paddle valves. I tried to repair these. They're too far gone. I'm going to end up having to spend a lot of extensive time making new brass spools and all that to go into the system, and I said, you know what, they still sell those. These paddle valves would go right here on the front, right at your knee. You hit this paddle with your knee and it operates the jolt, which actually raises the table up a few inches and then drops it. Bam, 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 and that helps jar that sand down and compact it. And then you have the squeeze operation where you would push down on this and it would operate a bigger pneumatic cylinder down here at the bottom, which would raise the platform smoothly into this headram here. I'm going to have to do a modification, and I'm not going to do anything to destroy the machine, but I am going to take these bolts loose from the top table, and I'm going to make a riser block to lower this platform where it'll handle more of the flask that we use here. This one is entirely too deep. I think I could get away with like a 3-inch riser block, and that would accommodate, that would take care of that. It has adjustment to lower and raise it, and it can go 1 more hole here and 1 more hole here, which would keep the top platen here, or whatever you call that, parallel to the bottom table. And it came all the way from California. Gordon Sond Draker and Company. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to point out was the left paddle would be to operate your vibrator. They would put this little vibrator, pneumatic vibrator, on the match plate, and it would shake it. And I'd like to eventually get back to doing it like that. Anyway, that's the way these things operate. And I've got a video of when I first got this and put air to it to make sure everything worked. At that time the table was stuck, but after a lot of muscle I got the thing to free up. And I also have another one of these molding machines outside, and it's completely froze up. There's nothing, I can't get the first screw to turn on it, so I guess we're going to have to sink it in evaporust and then from there transport it to a barrel of WD-40, I don't know. It will require a lot of heat from a torch, I assume. While we're here, I wanted to show you one of the things we're going to mold, and thanks to Jake and Dollar, they already opened the box for me. Tim, relax, the pattern is fine, they never did get to the bubble wrap, so this is it. It is a base for an electric fan from the turn of the century, and I didn't know this until I was talking to Tim. Tim Marks is the customer, and he is out of New York, I believe. Electric fans are in high demand on some collectors' list. I was thinking about all the electric fans I grew up with that were made from the turn of the century that were at my grandma's house. And they're probably all in the scrapyard now. I guess that's why the collectors are paying such a premium price for them. He did an exceptional job on this pattern. It is very smooth, and we're going to use our finest facing sand to make sure we can cast him an iron casting that looks similar to this. This came from Matthew Oldenburg out of Michigan, out of Saginaw, Michigan. Matthew is an antique tractor, gas, and steam engine collector. And he sent me this card. If you want any information on what he does, or if you happen to have anything he's looking for, feel free to contact him. This is a fairly large casting. It's a crank cover for a hit and miss engine. I don't remember what kind. As you can see, it's fairly large, and we want to try to knock that out today too. That's going to be a difficult one. Now, I'm using an iron flask. This is one Keith gave me, I believe. They add about 40% more weight to the mold. So I like to try to treat my bat with some tender loving care. This is not tender loving care, guys. These things are heavy. And the reason I'm using a metal flask for this job is it fits better within the parameters. The only thing is I won't be able to put a cheek on it. I may have some more flasks that size down in storage, but we can probably cope out enough to make this work. We will end up having to elevate the flask by about 1 inch because of the overall height of this. I think it's right at 5 inches, and our flask is only 8 inches. So we're going to have to centralize this in between the parting lines. That means what it's sitting on right now is not going to be the parting line. The parting line of the flask will probably be, it'll probably be about like this. So the center of the flask is probably going to be about right here. So I have to elevate it more than 1 inch. It's going to be a lot of coping, but somehow we'll manage. I'm going to be ramming several things in this mold along with this fan base. These loose parts, the customer needs 4 sets of these, 4 sets of these, and 4 sets of these. Unfortunately, we're not going to be doing the first one of these. You see that finish? Well, it feels rougher than it looks. There's no way that's coming out of a mold. So we're going to send that back. This one came close to not meeting spec as well. But I was able to get in there with a wire wheel, and I think we can get this out. It's not going to look perfect. It's not going to look as good as the original. We have a hole right here. I am going to put a backer there. Like this. I'm going to just scratch it off flush. What I'm basically trying to do here is make a core. As you can see here, let's try it again. Hey, dollar, you're nasty. You're nasty. Go on, get, you're nasty. All I did was just make a little bit of a false core here. Dollar's in here, but she just got out of the pond, and I'm not about to encourage her to come over here right now because she may smell like a skunk. Do this without dropping the bottom. Alright, so that's just going to be a little temporary core that we made on the inside. Just in case there's any condensation there, I'm just going to lightly absorb it with the powder here. Go ahead and get this too. And we'll go ahead, just in case we have any little avalanches. me putting that core in helps stiffen the inside where it doesn't damage the pattern, because the pattern is very thin. This makes it solid for this operation. So let's go ahead and dig this out. Keep that sand from falling down in there. Start off low and not beat all my cording dust down in there. Oh my gosh, cast iron. Guys, this is why I don't use metal flask. Alright, so I have this is where I want it. Yep. Crap. All right, we're gonna dump it and do it again. That's a good thing about having electrical work and all kinds of construction going on around you at the time. Plenty of stuff to grab that you might need. I'm going to re-ram this up again. I did it again. But luckily, that's the bottom side. We will be making several of these, so we will just go with that. I guess I hurt Dollar's feelings. She disappeared. I'm gonna cut my runners and all that in the drag, and it's gonna flow up here. So we're going to have a little ragged edge right on that corner, on the internal corner. Maybe that's not going to be a problem. That's going to be the only issue we're going to have with the exterior part. Got a little sand here I need to get rid of, but for the most part, and the hole in the middle is not going to pull. But other than that, it would have been great if the pattern could have stayed on the core. And I'm probably going to do this again since I got to have 2 more of these things anyway. We'll do that again. Not too shabby. I want you guys to know this belt sander has really been handy to have, and I want to thank Mike Wiggins. He gave me this at the Florida Flywheelers. He took it down there, and then Stan Zankowski was able to bring it back up here. Him and Philip Smith delivered it several days later. Anyway, I bought a 30 grit ceramic belt. It's a 103-inch belt, and man, this thing is awesome. I don't know any other way to describe it. It's a metal-eating machine. I ground some very heavy gates. Focus, there you go. And it just ate that down in no time. That gate stuck out about a 1/4 inch. And, you know, it's those kind of things that just really make my life easier. Mike, I want to thank you again. It has definitely accelerated our speed on that end. I hope this thing will hold up for a long time to come. Well, this job for Mr. Tim Marks out of Pennsylvania is complete. We have just finished grinding it. There was some sand broke off in the corner here, but he only needed 1, and I told him we'd probably be sending him 2 because 1 may not turn out as good as the other. But anyway, beautiful pattern. You can see this thing has a very nice polished sheen to it, and that always helps when we're trying to cast stuff. These can be tricky because they are thin. luckily it worked out. Unlike the hit and miss crank cover that we just tried to make. I didn't even bother trying to clean this thing up. But yeah, man, I'm dreading having to re-ram this thing. That was a job. And what bothers me is this is fairly thick. This isn't thin like a skillet. It's probably at least, yeah, I'd say 3/8. And to give you an idea of what we were supposed to be making there, this is it. This is what I used for the pattern. And it is also a casting, but it's fairly smooth. And on the sides, that's where it's going to always grab. Now, it was a hassle because you have to ram up. We discovered we're going to have to ram up the core first. So we're going to have to make a false drag to ram that and then dig it all out once we get our parting line established. And then ram the core first, destroy the cope that was in, and re-ram the cope. And then before we can pull it from the cope, we need to make sure it'll free from the core. So, and that's what I had to do earlier. So we know what we're going to have to do there. And I've got a flask that's wood that would make my life a lot easier, but it's almost right here to the end. It's plenty wide, but yeah, we had some issues there. So what I'll, if I have room on this next one, I'm going to gate it not only on this side, but I'm going to go all the way around with a horseshoe runner. And that should take care of that. So far what I got are these. These do look pretty close. And got another one here. Of course, you'll have to drill the hole. But these turned out looking pretty good. These little flat castings like this are not a problem because they pull from the sand a lot easier than the deeper stuff. Now, let's move on to these little wheels here. I am not going to ruin these by trying to grind that mess out of there. Right now, he can probably salvage them. This one turned out a little cleaner than the other one, but still, that's the kind of mess you run into when you're using a casting to try to make another casting off of. It magnifies the roughness, the flashing, all that mess, and it can be a headache. In this particular part, this particular casting, you have to mold it. Let's see. Your bevel is from the top down, so that means your parting line is right here. All right, and I found that out on this one. I didn't catch that on the first one. So you have to start off by ramming this up and tucking it, up under there. Just keep it from wobbling, and ram it all up. Then when you flip the flask over, you got to dig down because it sits here on this hub, and you got to dig down to this parting line here, and then you ram that part of it up. So your parting line is right here on that shoulder where you see the edge. And so honestly, next time I do this, I'm probably just going to make a beveled piece of wood to put the hub down in as a follow board, and it already have the plane established. As I said, that's the original, and it did not. You see the roughness on the hub? let's see what the roughness of the castings look like. See how they broke off? It's because that side is so rough. That's why you can't use castings for patterns, guys. All right, I've got a let's put those back in with that, and we'll keep these separate. I need 2 more sets of those. I'm not happy at all with this wheel. We'll probably just chunk it and try it again and try to get it more like this one, because I would like to have that tooth profile looking this good on all 4. And that's not the case here. But there's enough on the front and the back side of the tooth to follow with a file if you've got 20 years to work on it. I don't know if you remember the last time I did these cubes, but this makes a world of difference, making this additional little bracket to pull them from. Works quite well. For those who have been asking about the Windy Hill Foundry hats, these are now available on my website, windyhillfoundry.com, under stores, or you can click on the above link. These are on the pricey side, but keep in mind the shipping is included. Have a good day.